Here's Ballard talking about trade talks that happened for Jonathan Taylor and the future between Taylor and the Indianapolis Colts, if there even is one.
Did we give him permission to seek a trade? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. I'm not going to get into the details of teams, what was offered and what wasn't offered. But what I'm going to tell you is Jonathan is valuable. And at the end of the day, we're not, I'm not just going to let him walk out the building. I'm not going to do that. That's not the best thing for the Colts.
Chris, will he rehab here?
Yes.
And will you still let his camp seek out trade offers?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into trading. I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. I'm not going to get into that. Right now, Jonathan Taylor's a Colt.
Chris, do you see any scenario where Jonathan Taylor plays for the Colts again?
Of course there is. Of course.
Yeah, there's a scenario, and the scenario is we sign him to a long-term contract. The scenario is the owner of the team lets me do my job and fix this and give this guy a contract that he has earned so he'll be here to be the guy that allows our franchise quarterback to develop. That's how it would happen. Now, look, I still think the more likely outcome is trade by October 31 or trade under the franchise tag next year, and it's going to take some work to turn that around. And the guy that's got to have the epiphany isn't Chris Ballard, it's Jim Irsay.
Yeah, I would say so, yes. To me as a guy, on the outside looking in, it seems like this thing's gone a little too far down the road to maybe, mend the fences here, mend the bridge. What the hell is it? Whatever. It's one of those things.
Mend fences.
Okay. Well,
mend fences.
We're mending fences, yeah. I think it might be a little too far down the road here. We'll see where it goes. But, I didn't think the trade was going to happen the last few days. Right? And I think even the trade during the season is still something to watch for here. One, we don't know how real his ankle injury is. Two, even getting traded, okay, yes. Again, he's still going to, if he gets traded, he's still going to be wanting more money and a new contract and all that. So that's where I'll be interested to see at least the market that might be available for him before the trade deadline.
And there will be a point, I think, Chris, where Jonathan Taylor would just accept a trade as is, knowing that he's got leverage after the season via the franchise tag. Just trade me to some other team. The fact that they give up something that would get the Colts to say yes puts them in a position where they're going to have to pay me. So they don't have to pay me now. Let me come back and play half the season, establish myself that way, and then they can pay me later. And look, from the Colts' perspective, and from a potential new team's perspective, if you're going to be surrendering 2024 draft assets anyway, there's an argument to be made to just wait until 2024. Why are we doing this now? Why are we doing one of my favorite sayings, changing the tire on a moving car? Why are we doing this? Why are we complicating our lives right now? Unless there's a contender out there that loses the starting running back to injury and was thinking about him anyway. Let's go ahead and do this thing, and he helps us now, and he helps us later. Let's make this happen. That's the way to do it. But
I see that.
Until October 31 comes and goes, that window's still open, and something could happen. All we know is he's not going to play for the first 4 games of the season for anyone because he's on the reserve, physically unable to perform list because of the ankle injury that may or may not be real. And we know, and we talked about this yesterday, there's suspicion, at least by Irsay, that it's not real. That's where that chatter came from about moving him from the PUP list to the non-football injury list to call his bluff and say, it's really not a football injury. We're not going to pay you. We're not going to let you milk this ankle injury that we don't believe is a real injury so you can get paid to not play. That, I think, is part of this frustration that Irsay has because he doesn't understand that as a practical matter, it's a device that's available. You may not like it, but when the head of the union is out there saying guys should do this and somebody does it, what do you do about it? You get pissed about it, or you can understand this is just one of the factors. This is just something we need to navigate as we try to solve this problem.
Yeah, no, I think you said it right. And I think, when you get back to the trade thing, I think that the thing that hits on me is, like you said, I think it's the contender thing, right? I of course, I don't see a bottom of the league or a team that knows they're not going to be a legit contender, anything like that, going, oh, let me get Jonathan Taylor and give myself these headaches here dealing with this in the offseason. I think the thing I look at is, a team like the Baltimore Ravens getting into the trade deadline going, ooh, man, J.K. Dobbins, maybe he's still not 100%, or, man, we got everything except I wish our running back or running game was better. I'm throwing out an example. A team like that, or Joe Mixon got banged up for the Bengals, and they go, oh, man, we're a Super Bowl team. We can win it, but we need another guy on the offense or running back. I think that's the scenario, and I also think that's a scenario that'll motivate Taylor, even though he might not get paid right away. He'll go, well, at least I'm out of Indianapolis, and I'm on a good football team and got something going here in that direction. So I could see that happening, Mike.
The elephant in the room is how real is this ankle injury?
Yeah.
Is it a hold-in, an old-school hold-in where a guy could play if he wanted to, but isn't going to because he's not happy with his contract situation? Here's Chris Ballard answering the question of why Jonathan Taylor is still on the physically unable to perform list.
As for the decision to put him on PUP, it's when you're still having effects from last year's surgery and still having pain and not 100%. We're not going to put a player on the field that's still complaining of pain in the ankle. I'm not going to do that. An injury. I wouldn't do that to any player. Wouldn't treat anybody any differently. So what Jonathan will do is he will rehab his butt off and try to get himself ready to go. All right. Time's yours. Fire away.
Chris, what you just said is opposite to what a team source said about a team not believing that Taylor is actually. Do you guys believe Jonathan Taylor is lying about his issues?
What I just told you was he still has pain in the ankle. Still has pain in the ankle.
And see, that's how easy it is to hold in. If the team is not going to engage in the unseemly exercise of saying, we don't believe you have pain in the ankle, there's no test you can give someone that comes back with a yes or a no on whether or not the person is feeling pain. Pain is entirely subjective. So, look, Jim Irsay thinks the CBA gives him a variety of rights and powers over a player. Reality gives the player the ability to push back a little. And even if they think he's embellishing, I said all along, the Colts have Jonathan Taylor in checkmate, that he should just take the $4.3 million and go play, have a big year, and see how it plays out. He found a way to turn the tables on them. If they're not going to question the veracity of his complaint that he has pain in his ankle, he doesn't have to play. Now, does it help him? And this is why my prior opinion was he should play, because I don't think it helps him next year if he doesn't play this year. How does that help him? He missed 6 games in 2022. He missed 17 games in 2023 because of this lingering ankle problem. You just have to hope that the other teams are like, oh, yeah, we know the ankle was fine. He'll be fine. Even then, he missed a whole year. There's no guarantee he's going to be fine next year. Even if he could play now, if he doesn't play at all this year, we talked about this with Deshaun Watson. You take a guy out of the game for a year, may have a hard time finding his magic back.
I agree. Finding your magic back, you lose explosiveness, you lose your feel for the game, right? Everybody in football questions, where's his body at? Where's his mind at in this whole thing? Watson hasn't looked the same, right? And even this preseason, it was better, but, their offense certainly hasn't been a high-functioning machine there in Cleveland. All right, and then the other example we have is a running back in Le'Veon Bell. He never looked the same either. And, I don't think that does anybody any good as far as anybody in Jonathan Taylor's camp by sitting out the year and doing nothing. I don't think that's the best thing for him, overall. And like we've talked about, you got to get your money while you can. You can't leave it on the table here.
And, look, the trade didn't happen, so the details really don't matter, but the Packers acknowledged they looked into it, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah.
They have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, and they're supposedly rebuilding. I think the big takeaway from that is they don't think they're rebuilding. If they're thinking about Jonathan Taylor, they don't think they're rebuilding. They think they're trying to take this thing to the next level, and the Dolphins were in on it as well.
Right.
And apparently, the Colts wanted Jalen Waddle. And so I don't think you're getting the trade done for Jonathan Taylor if the Colts want the guy you used the 6th overall pick in the draft on 2 years ago, and he's turned out to be pretty damn good.
Right.
I think that's a non-starter or damn close to it.
Well, see, that's again, though, another thing you can put in the category of this is kind of messed up. They're showing you what they think of the player, how valuable he is. They want a superstar receiver in return, but they want to basically pay a minimum wage for his job. And again, that's where it don't look good. I don't care what anybody says. It's not a good look for the NFL, the Colts, anybody. I'm not saying, again, I'm not blaming anybody there, but that's where it's weird. And then the Green Bay thing, Mike, I got to think there was that talk there involved swapping a running back to a degree. I would think. I mean, were they going to give him A.J. Dillon? With that, I mean, I would think so, right? I mean, they need a running back. They need something else on the offensive side of the ball. That's for sure.
But even then, with all the teams in the NFL, 2 of them, the Packers and the Dolphins, who didn't even come remotely close to putting enough on the table, that should be a message to the Colts that maybe they want too much for Jonathan Taylor, and maybe the right solution is work it out. And meanwhile, a lot of Colts fans get upset when I criticize Jim Irsay. Hey, folks, maybe you should hold your owner accountable. Maybe if he heard it from you, his customers, maybe he'd change his ways. Because even though they won a Super Bowl on his watch, it wasn't because of anything he did per se. He just didn't get in the way. He's getting in the way now, and it's dragging down the team, and it's creating problems for a team that could have been a potential contender this year. But with this cloud, as Chris Ballard said, you got to be all paddling in the right direction, and they're not, and it's going to be hard for the Colts to win. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.